Okay, welcome to our fourth video for you pastors out there. We're trying to make you successful. We have been blessed. We are seeking to be a blessing. That's why we're here. We're spending our own time, our own energy, our own money on you because we love you, we care for you, but most of all, we know this glorifies God. And we want to do that. You've got Bob 2, Bob 1, Peter, and Grant. Bob 2, we are talking now about a business plan. You mean I've got to think through this before I start?
If you want any help from me, you better think it through.
So tell us about a business plan. You've got point number 1. What kind of a business?
Yeah, we got to help you decide what kind of a business are we talking about. And we're not just specifically saying, I want a chicken business, okay? There's different types of chicken business. We've talked about the fact that there's different breeds of chicken. And, you know, what is your end product going to be? Are you going for eggs? Are you going for selling the chickens? Are you going to do a little combination of both? Those kinds of things. So it's not just necessarily what we're going to say the kind, but specifically what am I going to do? What is that business going to be? We've talked about pharmacy. We've talked about different things like that. So why that business? You know, what kind and why that particular business? And why have you decided that that would be the best business for you? Then we need to discuss, when we say what kind of business, how big? Am I doing this just so I can feed my family? Am I doing this because I want it to support my church, my ministries, my missioning, and etc.? That's obviously two really different kinds of business or size of business that we're talking about as well. So a lot of this has to come down to is, what is your end goal? What are you ultimately going to try to accomplish with your business?
Peter, are there churches that have businesses? Like, does a church own do you know of churches that like own a business? We want to do this for our whole church. Is that even a possibility?
We have denominations that own businesses. I think one time you came to Kenya and you spent time at Milele Hotel, which is owned by Presbyterian Church. That's okay. We have some churches that do own businesses, but we are talking about the pastor himself. This is your business. This is not church business. It's not going to be ran by the church. It's not even going to be ran for the church, because the missions that you want to accomplish out of this business, then you have first to make it in this in order to accomplish those other businesses. So it's a different ball game, I think.
Okay.
Sure.
So when you talk about what kind of a business, as you talk about getting bigger and bigger, we're talking about the individual getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Maybe that could help support people in the church, but not a church business.
Okay. So then, you know, why? Is it something you're already familiar with? You know, do you know somebody who has already done this kind of business? You know, are those your reasonings for doing it? Because you think you have someone who can give you great support for this kind of business? Do you know there's a lot of demand for this business, that you have just seen that there's just plenty of people that would love to have this and there's just not enough of it, kind of thing? And it could be as much as what I think Grant had talked about, like what makes his business so much better than all the other restaurant businesses, the quality of the product. Is it that you believe that you can deliver a higher quality product out there than that's out there right now, that people would want yours over theirs, maybe even pay more money for yours than somebody else's because it's that much better?
And that's, Grant, your business. Your business has a better product. There are other chicken restaurants all over, but yours is flooded.
Right.
Because you guys offer a better product.
Yes. And I think if you take even our business model, the franchisee model, it's very similar to what we're looking to do with you local pastors. We don't want you all just to create a business just for the sake of feeding a bunch of people, right? Because we realize any seed, right, if you give them the seed, like Peter's talked about, that seed, you know, you take the seed or the food or whatever, but then there's no tree left, right?
Yeah.
And so we want the tree to mature to a place that people long term later can eat more, and you can support more people in the future. But even better than that, we want maybe that fruit that they take off the tree to be a business themselves, right? We want to empower business owners, and that's what Chick-fil-A has done really well. It started with one guy who was faithful in his restaurant. He empowered other business leaders to have their own restaurants, and it multiplied to where now I'm able to support a lot of people. I'm able to invest a lot in ministry, right? But I'm also empowering people underneath me to go own their own businesses someday. And that's like the ultimate vision here, right? Bob too was talking about having a mission and a vision. Well, there's those short-term missions and visions that we run after, but long-term, our heart is not just that you can support your family, not just so that you can feed your church and support your ministry, but that you empower other Kenyans within your church even that say, wow, the pastor he owns his own business. He used to not, but not only does he own a business, but it's successful. Maybe I can do that. Mm-hmm. That's what we're hoping to do eventually.
You become an inspiration.
Exactly.
And Peter, let's get back to your example, or somebody's example here of, well, Dad, you're always late. Why should I be on time?
Exactly.
You've got to set the example for the people in your church. You've got to set the example for your children, for your wife. I'm on time. I'm doing this on time. Follow my example. Follow me as I follow Christ, Paul says. See my example. Live out my example that you can be faithful in your own business. And if you want to do what Grant is trying to do, empower people to not only make a living with him and then eventually go out and start their own businesses, they're looking to Grant. They're seeing how hard he works as a result. I want to be like that. I want to be like Grant. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's definitely. And then again, what that is that you have to make people accountable for what you're expecting from them. So what we say, you have to inspect what you expect. So that is part of your job as a leader and a business owner, et cetera, is that not only do you show them how you want things done, lead by that example, but you also let them know there's accountability coming. I am going to check on you. I am going to make sure that you're doing the things the way they need to be done, the way I have taught you to do them, or have led you to understand to do. So you have to kind of inspect what you expect out of people. That's how they learn that accountability, and they start becoming that leader that you need them to be.
And some people start whole businesses on keeping others accountable.
Absolutely.
And that's a business in and of itself. Pay me to keep you accountable. In America, we do that because we know accountability is what makes things get done. If you just expect it to get done, but you never keep them accountable, sometimes it gets done, sometimes it doesn't. Accountability is an amazing thing. That's what Judgment 2 is all about. Judgment 2 is God saying to us, okay, how'd you use your life? How'd you use the gifts I gave you? How'd you use the talents I gave you? We're going to be held accountable. And that is what Bob, too, and Grant are going to be doing with you when you want to start up a business. He's going to say, okay, but before we give you the chickens, before we give you the coop, I want to see what have you done here, 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 and here.
We are going to inspect what we expect you to do in order to do that. And we're going to continue to do that even after. Once you've got your business up and going, we are going to check in with you. We're going to inspect what we expect that you should be doing, and we're expecting you to be able to answer certain questions, and we'll go over those at another time of basic things that we need for information. We're using that information for what we talked about, feedback, so that we can make adjustments and adaptations for future training, for future pastors who are going to do business. So we're going to be learning from you as much as you'll be learning from us in this process. Etc. But I need the information. I need the accountability for you all to give us good information, proper information, because if you don't, then the information we use is not going to be accurate for others. So we're all in this together, all a community to make this a better program, more successful for everybody. Now, one thing I'd like to say on that, this is really important. You have been handpicked by certain pastors that we are close to. You've been handpicked because we asked them to make sure that these people had just a passion for Christ, that are just dying to get out there and do Christ's work and mission, etc. Because we believe that's going to be a major driving force for you to do well in your business. Number 2 is we needed people who we believe were going to be determined to make sure that this worked, because the success of you original people in this program are going to be the success that the whole program goes from. If this fails, It fails for all the other pastors that we have available and who have written into us and want our help and etc. It fails from the standpoint that we will not be able to help them, and then obviously we're expecting some pay it forward from you all to help a fellow pastor. If you didn't succeed, we obviously don't have a pastor that's going to be able to help another pastor.
And Grant, I want to get back on this accountability a little bit more. Your franchise, your business is in the top 20% of all Chick-fil-A businesses, correct?
When it comes to scores.
Scores, yeah. But are they saying, hey, you're in the top 20, just go on your own, or are they still keeping you accountable?
Definitely not. And I wanted to bring that up. I mean, we're the most successful restaurant probably in a 50, so what is that? 100 kilometer, probably 80 kilometer radius all around us. But the thing is, I have probably between 5 and 7 different groups of people that are holding me accountable, that are challenging me, that I'm trying to learn from. I mean, I have another group of restaurant owners nearby who are meeting with me, and we're collaborating with each other. I have a business consultant who's challenging me and pointing out things in my business that I could do better. I have a job coach who's teaching me and my leadership team how we can grow the business and incorporate better practices and better leadership development within my restaurant. I have a team under me of high-level leaders that are challenging me and giving me ideas and being honest with me on decisions that I make that maybe don't work out too well. And so accountability is coming not just from one person, but it's coming from peers. It's coming from consultants that have been doing this a lot longer than me. It's coming from professional coaches, and most importantly, I would say it's coming from the people that I work with who see things that I don't see, because they're the ones that are doing it every single day. So yeah, accountability is absolutely essential, and it's not going to be like that right away, but maybe it's just your family who's holding you accountable. Maybe it's somebody in your church, maybe church leadership that's also holding you accountable. Maybe it's also a fellow pastor who just started his or her business too, that they're collaborating with you so that you're learning from one another on what's working. It also comes from us, right? As people that are maybe third parties that can speak into it. It's looking at somebody like Patrick, who started a successful chicken business and is doing well and is still learning, but he's a little farther along, right? And so again, that's the importance of teamwork, working together, and having a group of people that are sharpening you and making you better.
Yeah, it's just a total mindset kind of thing that you just kind of have to understand with a business owner. The best way I know to kind of sum it up would be to ask you a question, Grant. Does a great business ever say that's good enough?
Definitely not.
And that's the real difference. You cannot go about your business saying, you know what, I could do this way and it would be so much better, but this is good enough. Okay? You'll never really have a great, awesome business that could do all it potentially could do. Okay? Kind of like being what we'll call a lukewarm Christian. Okay? I could be doing this and I could be doing that, but hey, this is good enough. Is that really what you want? Is that really what God wants for us? Etc.
That reminds me of the parable of Luke 19, the parable of the talents. The one who had one made 10, the one who had one made 5, the one who had one made 0. The one that had one that made 10, he heard the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You now get to rule over 10 cities." The one who had one that made 5 heard, "You get to rule over 5 cities," but he did not hear the words,
Good
"Well
enough.
done."
Yeah.
He didn't hear what was implied. Could have done a little bit better.
Yeah. He did okay.
He did okay. That's not what we want for you.
Yeah.
We don't want you to do just okay. We want you to hear more so at Judgment 2, when we stand before. We want you to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And in order to hear that, you're going to need to hear the words, "Well done," by these two men, overviewing your business. If you're faithful in little, I'm going to give you much, says our Lord. Be faithful in the little things.
Yeah, a good example for us, and we've discussed this, is there a second level to what we're doing here today? And the answer is yes. We could talk about that. If you decide and you have proven that you know how to do what you're doing and you're doing it well, and it may come to the point to where we invest in an incubator take your business to a whole different level, a whole different type of work. You've been selling eggs for 20 cents a piece. Now you're selling baby chicks, 1-day-old chicks, for $1. 5 times the amount of money. But it takes the investment in an incubator, okay? Incubator's not cheap, $650, $700 US, okay? So, what would cause us to do that? Why would we want it? It would be the same thing we're talking about here biblically. You have shown us to do good things with what we gave you initially, then we will reward you with an opportunity to do more.
Again, when we are saying well done, it is something that every business person wants to hear being told. But I also think that well done may at times be preceded by it is not good. What you're doing is not good. And that is accountability. And when we look at the scriptures, after God creating man, he said, it's not good for this person, for man to be alone. So if God can say it is not good, then we, at times, we have to accept being told it's not good. And that is what Jethro is telling Moses. What you're doing, the leadership style you're dealing with, it's not good. Do this. So, and that is why accountability comes in. And if we fail to plan, we are planning to fail, definitely. So kind of planning is going to be there. But I also remember that you're saying that there is no perfect plan. So no perfect plan. So it's us engaging ourselves into bringing in minds that are relevant towards what we are doing in order for us to start it on the right footing.
So, Bob, that brings us to our next area of the business plan. You got to have goals. As he said, how'd you say it? This standard phrase. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. Or,
Yeah, if you fail to plan, you're planning to
Plan
fail.
Correct. Yeah. So obviously, part of your planning to succeed is you have to have goals.
Yeah.
You have to set goals. I will tell you that you need to be very careful on your goals, on how you do them. The first thing I'm going to tell you is probably not what you're expecting, which is I don't think there's anything wrong with having goals that are shooting for the stars. Okay? There is nothing wrong with wanting that kind of thing. As they say in the business, if you shoot for the moon, you may wind up among the stars. Still not a bad place to be. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with planning and wanting big things and having big hopes and aspirations. That's where you get some of this passion we're talking about. If you can dream big, then you will have that. But then you've got to take that. And as they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You then have to break it down into smaller goals, more achievable goals. So you've got to take the big plan that you have and you'd say, ultimately, how would you have to do that? So let's do it on a financial basis. To make my goal, I'm going to have to make, $300 a month in my business. Okay, so then you have to break that down and say, if I have to do that and my goal is I'm selling chicks, how many chicks do I have to sell to make $300 a month? I'm going to have to sell 300 chicks. How many chickens do I have to lay 300 eggs to make 300 chicks? And then you back it all the way down to you finally understand how many chickens do you need to start with and how that process is going to go.
Sure.
So you start with the big goal in mind of what you want and what the ultimate goal is that you would like to have, and then you break it down to where it's a very manageable, small, workable, daily plan that you know to do. Okay. I want this. I start out with 50 chicks. I feed them every day. I do this, I do that. 6 months later, they're all producing eggs and etc. This will give me my 300, 400 eggs I need. I incubate those over a 3-week period of time. I have this many chicks. I take them to market. I know where my market is. I know who's going to buy, where they live, what they like, what their needs are, etc. I'm able to sell that. I reach my goal.
Grant, you really opened my eyes when we were in Kenya together, and you talked about the amount of time it takes from when they say, I want a chicken sandwich, to when they get it. You guys have it down to the seconds, right?
Right.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, everything we do, our goal is, we are a quick service restaurant. And so when somebody comes to a quick service restaurant, they want quick service, right? And so I think all those other things are important, right? We want to be really hospitable. We want to be kind, right? We want to give them a great guest experience. We also want to make sure the quality's great too, right? Because ultimately, you can be very nice, but if the sandwich doesn't taste good, or if you're getting it 45 minutes after you ordered it, it doesn't really matter how nice you are. Because the guests are telling us, hey, we're in your drive-through, you know, where the car, in the US, we have these drive-throughs. You get in your car and you just drive up to the window and you get your food essentially. When they're in that drive-through lane, it means they don't want to come in and eat. It means they want the food as fast as possible and they want to go on their way. And so that's one thing we're constantly measuring. The interesting thing is, as we reach our goals, I mean, in the last 6 months, we've set a new record almost every 2 or 3 weeks. But the thing is, once we set the record, once we reach that goal, we set a new record. And so it's this heart of, hey, we're thankful. We've done great things, but we can do so much better, right? So what do we need to do? What do we need to change to challenge ourselves to reach our next goal?
So what's the average time for getting a chicken sandwich into their hand? I go up to the counter back before pre-COVID. I order my sandwich.
I mean, it's probably 3 to 4 minutes, you know, but again, we measure it more off how many cars can we do in an hour, right? Which ends up being a very similar thing, but we're trying to serve as many cars as possible. And so when I started 6 months ago, we were doing 90-ish cars from 12 to 1. So 90 people were coming through. A month later, we were at 110. A month later, we were at 130. A month later, we were at 150. Now we average 150. 2 weeks ago, we did 182 cars in an hour. And so it's one of those things, like, we're thankful, we're getting better, but we still want to challenge ourselves. Yesterday, we had our second biggest day we've ever had at the restaurant. Yes, I'm thankful for that. But I also look at it and I see, man, like, yes, we did great here, but man, we could have done so much better in our speed here. We could have gotten the food out faster here. So as a business owner, you're thankful, you reach your goals, but you also constantly have this mindset of how can we do better? How can we celebrate, but also challenge ourselves to reach our next goal? And that's our mindset.
Bob, part of the goals is this hospitality. My wife, Debbie, took a job being a hostess, just greeting people at the door. She gets so many compliments on texting as people text the restaurant. I'm coming back because of Debbie. It's just her cheerful, how you doing? Can I take your plate? It's the service that makes them want to come back along with the food. So that's got to be somewhere in the goals.
Yeah, Grant and I had this discussion yesterday when we were talking about this a little bit, which is I have always had more concern about the culture of my business than I did about all of the what are we going to sell, how many are we going to sell, who are we going to sell to. I've always said if you take care of your people and your customers, the money just comes. It's a byproduct of great service and great customer service. People are made to be in community with each other, and they appreciate the community, the service, the fellowship of doing business with people. And I think that's been very much discounted today. It's that people will pay more to do business with somebody that they like or they feel that they have a friendship or a fellowship with.
So Bob, a business plan, we're talking what kind of business are we looking at? We're talking why that business. We're talking goals. We've had a lot of good talks about accountability, keeping yourselves accountable, getting others to help you in there, making a professional product with superior service. This is what we hope and trust and pray that you can figure out with your own small business, how you can do that. So people are going to say, I want to do business with that person because I just love that person. I love doing business with them. Well, this is video number 4. Thanks for being with us. We're going to call it a time right here, and we will be back with video number 5. Thanks.